as a matter of interest, the first night when it had been gazetted that we have football on the estate, I was the only adult other than the committee at that particular meeting. I had to trip over push bikes and so on a chap's front lawn round the corner here to get into the place, and yeah, we decided then that we'd have football.
When I first arrived, I didn't know anything about the footy club when I first arrived, and I was driving home from work one night and I see players out on the ground training. I thought, oh, this is good. It's only a few streets away from my place. So I stopped and came in, and I thought the chap in the centre was the coach, but it wasn't. It was Jack Verity, big tall bloke in the centre, you know. And so then I signed up almost straight away, and about, I don't know whether it was the second game or the third game in 1964 season, they said, you're playing today. I went down to Dramana, who we were playing, and I hadn't trained because I just found out about the club. And of course I got cramp and that, you know, but it was all right, it was good. And that was my first start in the Pines Footy Club.
We used to get a lot of ridicule in the early days about the ground being a rubbish tip. Is that the
A swamp?
It was a swamp.
A swamp that brings to memory then that Kevin Tuck and I went and collected a copper and a bath, because our only change rooms in the first start of it was the old, what we use now as an outside bar, was a gardener's shed down the back end near the goal behind posts.
All we had was a gardener's shed down the end of the ground.
A little green shed?
Yeah, and the visitors used to get that to try change in. We had a tent. I think Vern used to bring his tent over.
With Vern Trotter.
And we used to use that for changing on game days. Yeah.
And the borrowed tent that we changed in, we let the opposition change in the actual the gardener's shed, because it had a floor and everything to it. We used then my tent, or our tent, over on the wing where the scoreboard is, to boil the water for the hot dogs and cups of tea and so on, that I used to take my tent home and dry it out in the lounge room. But any players that we couldn't take home to have a shower because of the mud heap that it was, they had a bath down the back end there that we'd stoke the fire up under the copper and make sure they had some water there to have at least a wash in. So, yeah, the sheds lasted.
The people, the supporters and that used to take players, opposition players, because it was a terribly muddy ground, home to their homes for showering and that sort of thing. Yeah. And that caused a great camaraderie with the other clubs.
Yes.
Yeah, and we just had a barrel in the tent. You didn't approve, but
just to wash the mud off your face.
Yeah.
Face and hands.
Yeah.
Well, we used to be virtually the laughing stock. Brings to mind in about our second year at Somerville, excuse me, emotion. At 3/4 time, Pines was in front. And the people from Somerville were saying, come on, they're only the Pines. Of which an old stalwart, Jack Verity, picked up on that, and that went in our next newsletter.
Everyone stuck together no matter what. And probably it stood out in the field. If you challenged one Pines bloke, you challenged 18, and the other clubs couldn't come to grips with that. Mind you, those 18, about 15 of them were probably pretty, you had blokes like Martin Simic who'd want to challenge him, for God's sake.
We made some bad headlines, or they gave us some bad headlines, nominating Pines the troublemakers. But it wasn't that way in the first place at all. The other the other clubs used to start it, and then we'd finish it.
It's always been a trait, even when we tried to recruit players. Whether you like it or not, it's a housing commission area, and as soon as you mention that to a lot of people, for some unknown reason it turns them off. And yet, once they get here, the best people you meet in your life. At least you know where you stand, you know.
It was the first one where Berkey ran through the, during the week, Berkey, would have been 76, Berkey was out working and he walked past his car and the trim on his car went through into his thigh, and there was talk that he wasn't going to play, and I remember half time and him standing up talking and the blood was dripping onto his boot, just standing there talking, and like everybody was bloody howling, I reckon, and I think Martin got up and ran through the bloody door, ran through the door out into the ground. That was it. It's all over. Well, it's 76. All the blokes that ran out there would have died for Berkey.
See,
fantastic.
No one was getting paid.
They all put in to help raise money. In those days, nobody got paid for playing. They all played for the club and for the colours, and they all pulled together to raise money towards a club room.
The big blue at Rosebud made the front page of the Sun.
Oh, yeah, right,
Yeah, on that was the reserve grand final, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Reserves grand final, yeah.
Maury had a mate there.
There must have been 400.
He said, let me out.
400 on the ground fighting, I reckon. 400 there.
Yeah, they started it.
Mate, of course they did. I think they hit Freddie over the...
They hit Freddie.
Rye, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Rye were in the Nepean League at that stage, and they'd won the first 18 flag on the Saturday. They rocked up with a ute or two with some barrels in the back, and they had a fairly big contingent of supporters, and they were evidently going up to the back, having a drink, coming down, and then, well, Ronnie Adams, of whom was the coach of there, we were that far in front at three-quarter time, or just after three-quarter time. He turned around to Freddie and said, well, you can come off now. And Freddie went to come off the ground, and as he walked around the perimeter, their supporters spat on him and reached over and grabbed him and tried to thump him, of which then another one of our best clubmen, Peter McDonald, happened to fix up a few of them.
Then a couple of them jumped the fence, yeah.
That was it.
No, it's open slather. Yeah. Two of them jumped the fence, which means 200 of us could go out.
I remember Paulie Clark running across in front of me screaming. He's just at the top of his voice.
And we didn't start it. So that, they just had to respect us from there. I suppose it might not be printable, but Barry Moore's brother-in-law, Jimmy Cody, happened to get up on our stools that were around the rooms at that stage. We were having a Maori hungy up at his place at Knox, and Jimmy gets up, and we'd brought the girls in because the way the change rooms were then, we had our social in there, etc. And after the boys had changed, so the girls could come in, so as we could try and have an ale together. Jimmy gets up on the stool and he happens to say, well, I need 300 good effing bricks to heat up to cook the hungy. So, that was...
and the funny part about that was it actually belted down with rain overnight, and we got up to his place at Knox, and he said, we've had a hell of a trouble trying to start this fire with the wet ground. Anyway, finally they uncovered it, all the leaves and stuff they took off it and got this food out, and everybody was tasting it. They started it with kerosene, and everything tasted of kerosene. It was really...
It was.
Trout. We had a bloke from Tasmania, and his name was Trout. He come the first night of training.
Blizzard was his last name.
Blizzard. Yeah. And he came down, and when no one knew him, coming with a Gladstone bag, and he opened it. That's all right, and he's got his footy gear out, and he's getting changed, and he out of his bag, took this jock strap. Ruddy, dirty. It was a dirty. It was a dirty.
You wouldn't put it on your cap.
He hung it up on the hook, and while he's getting ready, and we laugh. All the players were around, and he was a good bloke, but he was a real Tasmania.
Yeah.
Outback country bloke, but
Thought hygiene was a tall girl.
that's right. Yeah, but you can go on.
Gil Ross knew a bloke named Bongo from the Vines Hotel, and Bongo was hell-bent on playing football. So he went and bought himself a heap of, I think it was Essendon gear, brand new boots, socks, shorts, the whole lot. And he's come to train and his breath would have knocked anyone out. He was blind. And Berkey's jerried to it and was just outside here, and he said, right, I get in a line behind Bongo, and he said, Bongo, I want you to come out, scoop up the ball, pick it up, scoop it up, and pass it to the bloke down the other end. By the time Bongo went out, scooped it up, did the blind turn, he was staggering around over near the scoreboards. But for some reason, just about every lunatic in Frankston come through the doors here. Like, who could ever forget Billy Diggle streaking in the 74, I think it was 74 finals. Billy had a lot of trouble keeping his clothes on, and he's streaking across the ground with Millie Mortar following him holding his clothes. And there was a lot of complaints from the back of the grandstand, they couldn't quite see enough. But
But there was JL's another one. Like, you never knew what he was going to do, and as we were talking before, he never bought a packet of cigarettes in his life, or when he did, he'd leave them in the car, as Barry said before, and
He'd
always
say-
on the butt.
You always say there's plenty of blokes in there that got cigarettes.
Yeah, but there was.
I'll just tell you a little story too. When you was talking about JL before too, is did you know how we recruited John and Legsy?
No.
All right, we were having a pie night here one time in the old rooms, and they were only 17 or something, or 16, 17, maybe 15. But they were sitting out on the steps, and they were playing at Seaford. And someone said to them, what are you doing? They said, oh, we just want to know if we can have a pie and a can of Coke. We said, well, you can have a pie and a can of Coke if you sign a clearance and play with us, and they did. And could have been a mistake, but they were great for the club for years and years and years.
Berkey, of course. Berkey was one of those footballers who'd shove the ball under your nose and then you'd be grabbing mid-air, and he just aggravated the hell out of the opposition. But he was such a great leader. Like, I remember we played a practice game against Carrum in one of Berkey's early days, and they had a bloke, one of his sons or nephews played at Melbourne. Can't remember his name. It'll come to me. And Berkey's just gone up behind him and started belting him over the head. He said, what do you think you're doing? He said, don't go touching any of my kids, I'll kill you, you bastard. Hopgood. Hopgood was his name, yeah. You touch any of my blokes, I'll kill you. Berkey was so intense. He'd have us half an hour before the game. So now I don't want any arguing with the umpire. It's sick of this. 5 minutes into the game, you'd be dragging him off. He's trying to kill the bloody umpire. But a great player.
JL, and I don't know what year he won the best and fairest.
That would have been about 76, yeah.
Well, all right. Well, what happened, he used to go to the pub anyhow of a Saturday morning and have a couple of beers. I knew that. Players knew that. And I said, right, JL, to the players, I don't want any of us going to the pub of a Saturday morning. The only player that can go to the pub of a Saturday morning is JL, right? And I don't care if you the rest of you are caught, you're not playing. But JL can play. He won the best and fairest that year.
Yeah, he's the only half-back flanker that never ever picked up a man. He used to say, that was his saying, oh, I'm not worried about him, he can get his own kicks, I'm worried about my kicks.
That's JL.
Had a bloke here one day, Ted Warne from Corryong, I think he come, big fella, ruckman, and we were always short of ruckman. And Morey and Berkey were saying to him, it's a great club this, we're really going places, blah, blah, blah. Next minute, Legsy's come out and he's got a cigarette in his mouth with ash about 2 inches long, and he's got a pot in his hand. He goes over to the bloke, he coughs all over him, spills grog all over him. He said, "What's your name, son?" He said, "Ted Warren." He said, "Alan Lillico, fitness advice." And about 5 minutes after that, Billy Nichols roared out of the dunny, stark bollock naked, doing a dance on top of the bloody the pool table, yeah. But there were so many funny things. It was just, yeah.